Welcome to the Aussie Game Podcast, where we talk all things Australian football. A little bit of a different episode for everyone this evening, so I'm going to hand it straight over to Mopper because this was his initiative, his idea. So over to you, mate.
Well, it's Fan Week, Chief, and we've got lots of questions to talk about, and we just wanted to hear what's on people's minds, and so we can debate them, talk about them, and see if we can find some solutions or get a different opinion on some of the responses and answers to the questions out there, and really share that with the viewers, because if it's on your mind, it'll be on everyone else's, no doubt. And it's going to be some really top questions that have come through, and we appreciate everyone that follows and supports us and gets in these questions. So thank you for everybody that contributed. So we have the first one, Chief, and it's from Zach of Oz. And this was one of my favourites. I know I shouldn't say favourites in this game, but I really enjoyed this topic that he's going to talk about. So the question was, what can Football Australia do to make the Socceroos a more tempting proposition for young players who make a choice to make it over national allegiance, which is a really hot topic at the moment. And we're probably seeing a generation shift in the last probably 10 years with a few players, looking at different options, and the rule change, obviously, with FIFA, if you play juniors, it's not until your senior cap as well come over the rule changes over time. But this question has always been there. If you think all the way back to the Socceroos, probably from 2006, the dual nationalities, there's always been that big question. So it comes at a really good time to talk about, as we've got a really good 16-year-old that's Arena that scored a goal that everyone's talking about as well, so we can debate that as well. But the second part of the question is, there seems to be a wave of players coming through who are opting to commit elsewhere, or at least hedging their bets. And I think, most importantly, I think that second point that Zach of Oz made, hedging their bets, is probably be 100% right where people are at, because we've seen an increase in the World Cup participation with the amount of teams qualifying. And as we always have in a multicultural society, not only in Australia but in the world, plenty of players hedging their bets and looking for the best opportunity, because, again, it's still very difficult to qualify for the World Cup, even though the increase in the numbers. We've seen many teams still in these qualifying spots where we think would have already qualified but haven't. So it still goes to show how hard it is, and why probably players are hedging their bets, not only at senior level but at junior level. So let's break this question down. So I think if you look at a more tempting proposition, you have to go to the top first. You probably think it probably should be bottom up, but realistically, if you're a player growing up, you're going to look at where your top international Matildas or Socceroos are currently at. And how are they qualifying? Are they getting through to the big tournaments, and are they playing a part? Because that's going to generate the interest probably right from the beginning. And it's no doubt that would be the same if you're a dual international, because you're probably following two countries. So this is where it all starts. So if you look at Australia, what are the positives at international level? Well, Australia Socceroos at the moment, if we talk about the male version, have qualified for 6 World Cups in a row, have found an Asia Confederation, and have a really strong backing. And we've seen us climb to the highest ranking that we've ever been at ever before. So if you look at it from the top, the trajectory of the Socceroos over the time of the last decade is on the way up. So for starters, we've got that part in the right zone. The challenge for Australian football now, as it is with any international team, is can we keep cracking it into that elite level, and what's it take to actually get there? And I think that's the burning thing. Johnny Warren said it, can we win a World Cup? Of course we can win a World Cup, but we're going to have to do a lot more fundamentals to do that, or to get close to that mark, because the elite, there's a big difference, I think, between the round of 16 than it is below that. So let's have a look at probably point number 2, the junior level. Let's look at the junior level. And I think there's been a lot of comments and feedback, and saying our game's this, and a lot of feedback around how we can fix it and vice versa. But some things in the past teach us a lesson. And I'm going to go back to this in the first place. And this is probably relative to the last player, Antonio, who scored that goal for Roma, who the 16-year-old that everyone is talking about has come from. If you look at the under 17 Joeys, our latest under 17 Joeys, they haven't made the World Cup since 2019. So if you're a young player and you want to play at the 17s World Cup and you're dual citizen, and which Italy was, then of course Australia capped him already at a young age and now in the 16s. But what are you going to choose if that country that you're born didn't make it? Of course, you're going to not turn down a position or an opportunity if the dual nationality offers you a World Cup spot in a World Cup tournament. So again, the bottom line is we have to qualify at every World Cup at every level if we want to maintain the future and give them the choice of the young players, because then they can fall within that environment all the way through. If we fail and the other team exceeds, and he did score it in that last World Cup last year, then he's in their environment now. So they've kind of got that upper hand. Now, if you think about, well, why are we failing to make it at the 17s? But in the 20s, we won the Asia Cup, which is a success, which is a bonus for us. But then how come we didn't make the 17s since 2019? Well, let's go back to the future, or back to the past, I should say, not the future. I'm going to go back to our most successful under 17s team. And you'll remember this, Chief, in 1999. Now, in 1999, what happened? We made the final of the World Cup in New Zealand. Do you remember that one?
Yep.
Right. So we talk about how we can fix Australian football, but back then the basics were simple. I'm going to tell you a few interesting facts around how these under 17s made it. Well, for starters, they played 10 or 12 matches in that calendar year prior to the World Cup qualification of that domestic World Cup in New Zealand. And after that, after they qualified, they took the team, and these are kids under 17. So we're talking 16 and 15-year-olds playing 12 international matches. Then they took them for a 4 to 5 week South America tour to play the best of the best in clubs and country in South America to prepare for the tournament. So they would have played up to 20 games in under 17s in 1999 just to start and get that foundation behind them. Now, that's not rocket science. That doesn't need some great new innovation or strategy for the 17s to make the World Cup. That's just smart. When you take your youngsters and you teach them how to play against the best, they're obviously gonna rise, and the caliber's gonna rise from that. And you get that generational group together in an environment of competitive international football. And the success was the foundation. We nearly won the World Cup. We lost in the penalty shootout. So that just goes to show how simple it is. Now, I believe that if you look at this point, and we've had the emerging Matildas and emerging Socceroos and Joeys and all that at 16 and 17s level, for me, it's probably too late. It needs to start earlier. If you look at the reverse of what happens with the elite clubs and elite countries overseas, what do? They start them from 6, they start them from 12s. What do they all have? Academies or centre of excellences. And the difference between over there to here is a massive difference. In Australia, parents are paying for players to attend these academies that we have here. Over there, they pick the best and they train the best and they pay for it. The club and the country pay for it. Now, that'll have to be a huge generational shift. But if you go back to Zach of Oz's questions, what's tempting these young players when you've got, and you think about Antonio, he left at 13. 13 years of age, he went over to Italy. So, but if we have these centre of excellences where we're not asking the parents to pay for it, we're providing the elite with the facilities to grow, then if you have these centre of excellences, and it was funny enough, I just watched a little bit of the snap of Stan Sport, how they were talking about these centre of excellences, and I thought it was great timing that if we have these academies, then we can grow them. But the problem is parents are paying for them. That means we won't actually get the best players because some people won't be able to afford it. So you don't always get that. So you're going to have to offer the young players the best training facilities, but the best of the best at no cost. And then maybe the benefit is that they do go on, or you can put a 5% sell-on clause in their contract if they do come for free, that if you do sell in the past, then that academy gets that money back. But that's probably a bigger picture question. But that's probably some of the points that I want to raise with Zach of Oz's great question. So I think if we did those things in the country, you're seeing a lot of the 17s, 20s, 23s play now a lot more football, but we're not taking the younger players against the best of the best like 1999. That will playing Oceania teams. I think that they took the 17s over the Fiji, Solomon Islands. That is not going to cut it at this level. If you want young players to make sure that they qualify for the World Cup, you're going to have to take them against Arsenal under 17s, Liverpool under 17s, the best of the best in Europe, Ajax, Japan, Asia. And you're going to think, well, who's going to pay for this? Well, I think it'll pay for itself once you lock these kids in and to let the money flow back through with selling them on later in life, because the development will already be there. And the time thing, if they did it back in 1999, don't forget the kids have 12 to 14 weeks of school holidays. You've got 4 windows where you can travel or invite teams over, because it doesn't always have to be our cost to go there. You can invite them over if you link in with their season. So I probably looked at many different avenues, but there's some definitely great points from Zach of Oz with his question, and hopefully I've answered that one for the viewers.
I just want to take a couple of points on it. You mentioned the 17s not having the best success in terms of World Cup qualification, but I'd also throw the 20s and the 23s into that mix as well, because the 20s did win the Asian Cup and then obviously qualified for the World Cup last campaign, but they haven't had the best time of it before. And we know the history of our 23s in terms of Olympic qualification and how few and far between that has been as well. So it's not just that level. It's almost the Socceroos are qualifying regularly for the World Cup 6 in a row. That's fantastic. But we really do need to start getting these younger age groups qualifying as well. And I think you're right in terms of, if you want to showcase your talent on the world stage and you do have the option, that longer term you can always pivot back because you're not tired when you represent at a young age. So I think in like Antonio Arena's case, plenty of people are thinking, well, he's kind of Italy, but he is 16 and a lot of things can change before he gets a senior call up. I just want to take the question a little bit differently as well and think about it in the context of if you're past those younger age groups and you're, say, 20, 21, looking to break through into the Socceroos, it's probably 3 things for me that you're looking for. Firstly, you're looking for the opportunity. You're looking for an organisation like Football Australia and the manager of the Socceroos to give you that chance if you are a young player. And there are young players out there at the moment that are knocking on the door that aren't getting an opportunity. And that's not to say they won't be taken to the World Cup. We still have some time. But then you need the opportunity. Because if someone else is going to give you the opportunity, you might kind of pivot away from that. The second thing is you got to have success. Again, we talk about, let's look at the Australia versus Italy kind of concept. It's like Italy have failed to qualify for the past couple of World Cups and they're into a playoff to qualify for this year's World Cup. So again, if you want to be on the world stage, you're going to go where the success is. The third thing for me is that you want a style of football, and this is probably lesser to the other 2 points, but you still want to play in a style that suits your game and then can get the most out of your game. If you're playing a stodgy defensive type style and you're an attacking flair player, I'm not sure you're going to want to kind of rush to be involved in that. That's some of my points around. And I'm just thinking about some of the players, and let's be honest, it's gone both ways. We've brought in a lot of Scottish-born or English-born players, or Welsh-born and Croatian-born over the past kind of 10, 20 years. It's definitely gone both ways, but we've certainly lost some as well.
Yeah, no, definitely a good point there. And there's lots of different development programs out there, isn't it? Sin El Masa at Spain, one of the best in the world. So again, we don't have to reinvent. We do have a lot of facilities over here too, don't we? I know people think that Qatar and all that, but all this Saudi money is investing, but we've got a good culture over here too. So we're a sporting nation. So it is a good country to play for, and the culture of Australian football is still pretty good. I know we've got our challenges, but what country doesn't have challenges? They've got them at different points, but I think if, like you said, a very valid point around success, but I think Australia will always be open-minded. And I think as long as we get all parts of our game as a country right, at least gives the player the choice to hedge their bets like they do, or choose what they want to do based on whether it's family related or family motivated or football related. So yeah, it's a great topic and it'll continue for the rest of our lives. And as long as we're doing the foundations right, then I don't think we have to worry about it because we'll always produce player after player anyway. It's just a matter of whether you can continue to try to give everyone the best opportunity. But great question, Zach of Oz. So that was fantastic. All right, mate. We're going to go to the next question, and this is from Quintal, SZN. Has Matt Ryan surpassed Schwarzer as the best Socceroos keeper ever?
Ooh. Ooh, wow. Where do we start with that one? I suppose for me, we've got to be specific about how we're answering this because is like we're saying the best Socceroos keeper ever in terms of performances in a Socceroos jersey and not the best, say, Australian keeper, because that would include club football. I suppose different eras, like Schwarzer obviously played in those times, throughout those times, but they didn't qualify for World Cups. It was probably more challenging to qualify for World Cup, so he had limited opportunities there. Matty Ryan, is he going to his fifth World Cup? Maybe it's got to be at least his fourth. So look in terms of that level. Yeah, he's like pushing up there with the caps as well. It's hard to analyze because they're playing in such different eras, and when we're looking back at Schwarzer's era, they didn't play a lot of games. There wasn't kind of dedicated FIFA international windows, and there was pressure on players playing in England to actually come out and play for Australia. So look, I think they're both fantastic keepers. It's probably a hard one to answer until Matty Ryan has retired for me, and he probably needs to, I don't know, probably needs to do a little bit more for me in the remaining years of his career to surpass Schwarzer, just because of the legacy that Schwarzer brought. But it's always tough to analyze a player, I think, while he's still playing. It's almost like once they've retired that you can properly analyze their performance and their career. What do you think?
Oh, look, I think they're both great ambassadors for the game, aren't they? I know, Matt Ryan's got a lot of time for the fans, and so is Mark Schwarzer. He's doing punditry work and that to keep connected to the game. I think, look, Mark Schwarzer, 760 top level games. I think he's played higher at the top level in the Premier League.
Hang on. You're going to club football. Are we doing his best Australian keeper, or are we doing best Socceroos keeper?
Okay, well, I think if good point. If you look at then at international level, 109 caps to 101, I think Matt Ryan will overtake that. But I think it's always going to be hard for Matt Ryan to overtake the folklore of what Mark Schwarzer created back in 2005 with that World Cup saves and the history of it. But look, I think if you look at it from the international level, they've both achieved so much, haven't they? But I don't think that he'll ever surpass him, but I think they'll be talked highly in both club football and international football and be very highly regarded in Australian football overall. Seen Schwarzer pick up an award, obviously just recently, just how well respected he is, and we'll see when Matt Ryan retires. No doubt that that'll come for him as well. But it's a great question, but I don't think he's surpassed Schwarzer at the international level. But Asia Cup, he won the Asia Cup as well, Matty Ryan, so it's important to note. But then Schwarzer with the folklore and got us in the World Cup and played some pivotal moments too. So just a great question, but I don't think he's surpassed, but definitely up on the same pedestal.
All right, I'm going to take another one.
Another question.
I'm going to take another one from JB.
Okay.
Do you think A-League clubs should give Aussie strikers more chances, or always have a foreign nine?
Oh, we've seen a mix. Do you think A-League clubs should give Aussie strikers? Absolutely, I think we should because it's our domestic game. I think the reliance on that big international marquee of pedigree has always been in our back of our mind, hasn't it, for clubs when they recruit, and they always think that the X factor is going to be in that top half or top half of the front position, especially at number 9. We've seen some very good ones with Berisha coming in. He's created absolutely history. So I think the legacy that he leaves and a couple of the other strikers, but we've had Archie Thompson as well, number 9, do such a great job for Australia. But I definitely think there needs to be a balance, but I really prefer what I'm seeing now with Ryan Burkett and Luka Jovanovic. You can see the benefit from Australian football's sake. I don't think we really need to go for marquees in this position all the time. I definitely think I agree that A-League clubs should give Aussie strikers more chances. But you've got to remember the nine's changed over the last 5 years, yeah? We've gone away from that old-fashioned 4-4-2 or playing one up top. It's more about press, isn't it? Like the 4-3-3s or the 4-3-2-1s that have come in systematically in the last 5 to 10 years. And not many people play with a direct striker anymore because they're just not produced at youth talent either, because they've taught more around pressing and defensive press and being high and, turning the ball over, because the counter-attacks come into play in the last 5 years. So it's going to be hard to see those natural number 9s. Even Europe's even seeing a sufferance of a lack of number 9s, isn't it? They're so highly, looked for, but there's not many out there. So if Australians can do more in developing them, then absolutely A-League clubs should try to develop our own first.
Yeah, I think the point in the question, the word in the question, always have a foreign 9. For me, it kind of says it all. So I don't think they should always have a foreign 9. I think that if you're going to bring in a foreign 9, they need to be banging away 15, minimum 15, up to 20 goals a season. They need to be far and above what you have as an option for your number 9 for a local player. Because look across the league, you got let's go Perth. You got Taggart, you got Kucharski, you got Jovanovic at Adelaide United. Melbourne Victory's got Virgos as an international striker, but he's very kind of hit and miss. Melbourne City's got Maxi Caputo. You got Duke and you got Harry Sawyer at MacArthur. Wanderers can't score goals anyway. Campzano at Sydney FC, I wouldn't say he's necessarily pulling up trees. And then you got Lockie Rose at the Jets. Mariners haven't had a prolific striker either way, local or international. And then Brisbane, they've brought in Nick D'Agostino, but before that, Vidic. So I think there's a lot of 9s in Australia that are getting their chance. And look at how many have gone overseas in the past 2-3 seasons.
Yeah. Archie Goodwin,
Thomas Waddingham, just because they have got their opportunity. Yeah. Segacic, a little bit different, not an out 9, but he's an attacker. But if you don't give them the chance, they're never going to flourish. So, and I think JB also made the point in a separate comment about some of the strikers that have been let go by Sydney FC, like Kucharski, even Pat Wood. He's never really been given a consistent run in the team. So you're never going to find out if these guys are any good unless you give them a chance.
Yep, good point. All right, Chief, here's another one for you. Could Quintal, with a lot of game time in the next 1.5 seasons, be as good as Segacic was last season, who, I think he just missed Archie Goodwin in the Golden Boot.
No, they tied 13 each last season. So I definitely think, given his performance in the Sydney Derby, and we spoke about him at length on the podcast on the weekend, I think he's a quality player who, if he's given the opportunity, and we've said this a lot with Sydney FC, and the balance they had last year, they couldn't get it right with Costa and some other players, the foreigners that they brought in, the big stars. But I think these kids need to start being given a chance in the team, and Quintal was absolutely fantastic. So definitely with 1.5 more seasons behind him, say the rest of this season and one more. Don't forget, Segacic only got these fleeting moments to produce. He was mainly used as a sub off the bench for Tale. So when we talk about his performances in the A-League, I think they're a slightly different type of player as well. But in terms of quality, definitely. I could even see him getting to the level that Segacic was in the A-League quicker than the end of next season. I wouldn't be surprised if he's out of the A-League before that time. What do you think?
Yeah, well, we've seen glimpses, like we said in the podcast, with the under-20s, World Cup, Asia Cup. He's certainly shown the talent to be in those type of squads. he's on the same trajectory. He's getting game time, which was probably my biggest concern at the start of the year is where we'd fit in with Sydney FC. But with performances like this and his talent, I think, it won't take long. I think he's on the same path, and the key will be the next move, making it a very smart decision. I don't think Championship's probably good for Quintal. I'd love to see him like in a Holland or a Belgium setup. I think that's the type of football that suits him. But that's
Very
only
technical,
from
isn't
what,
he? They're a very technical player.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I reckon Holland would be perfect for him. Now, I'd hate to see him go to Scotland. I don't think those type of players really suit that style. I'd definitely the championships maybe in a couple of years, maybe, but like I think earlier on, and I think that kind of technique that he's got is definitely suited to a more type of that style in Holland that I think he could thrive off if he picked a club like Pepion and Max Ballard they pick those clubs where they can build their football. I don't think he can go straight to the elite because it's very hard to cut in at the best of times. You see how difficult it is with Geordie Boss and how much it takes just to get to there, how long it takes. I don't want to see players like Boss, his brother, go to Mains and we put him in a second team and then he gets injured and you're not going to see him now for the next 12 months. He could have stayed up with Melbourne and played 12 months and played Champions League football and A-League. So it's a very difficult decision that these players make, but you've got to make that first move right. I think Segic it was an interesting move going to Pompey, and he hit the ground running. And when you get it off to a good start, which doesn't always happen, he really cemented that in early, didn't he? And he was lucky enough to get that good run at the start to really cement his spot in there. So, but it doesn't always work like that. Adapting over there can be quite difficult. So
Look at the path of someone
he's-
like Brett Emerton as well. Like he stayed in the NSL for quite a long time and then went to Feyenoord, I think he was at, before he moved
yep,
across to Blackburn. So he used that
yep.
kind of Dutch league as a nice little stepping stone. So I know they're not the same kind of profile of player, but someone like a Quintal could take that kind of path.
Yeah, no, definitely. But great question. All right, mate. The next one for you. Which A-League club do you think has the best academy?
Ooh, another great question. It's hard to go past Melbourne City, I think, just because of the number of players that they've been able to produce that have either been kind of sold overseas or been given opportunities into the first team. Just trying to think off the top of my head. I mean, Adelaide's production line is amazing. Central Coast, but well above their weight in terms of what they can produce in academies. I think even MacArthur are starting to do a pretty good job in terms of the players that they're bringing through at the moment. Yeah, they're probably the ones off the top of my head that I'm thinking in terms of. I think other clubs tend to. I mean, it probably comes down to how you define success. Is success being able to come through the academy, say like Quintal we were just speaking of, and be there at 11 and then come all the way through into the first team. Like Lawrence Wong has done that for Melbourne City as well. So is that the definition of success, or are we looking for talent and then they can sell on, or is it part of that is recruitment, maybe bringing them in at a younger age and developing them? But they're probably the clubs for me. Yeah, City, the Mariners, Adelaide, and MacArthur. They're probably my picks for the best academies, and maybe while you talk, I'll think about one that I can put up the top.
I will say one thing. I think the academies over the last 5 to 10 years has come a long way. I know we had that youth league that we tried that we couldn't financially back, and then it was divided between states and it became very difficult. But if you look at the academy setups that each club have across the board, the facilities and to get them through from all age dot all the way through now is second to none what we had 10 years ago. So I think every A-League club should be credited for that. I think they all have different varieties of strengths and opportunities. I think you're right about Adelaide Central Coast. Sometimes it's not about the academy, it's about being able to pick a player and develop them and give them an opportunity. And I think that's what Adelaide and Central Coast do very well. They promote youth all the way right from the start into the A-League. They don't wait. They just get them straight in there. Now, whether that's a production line of the academy or just a youth policy, I think that's a reflection of probably both clubs. I think you're definitely right about Melbourne City and Sydney FC. They've probably got the biggest academies by population and demand, and they definitely have the pick, I reckon, due to what they have. And Western Sydney, even their facilities out there are fantastic. I think in time, you've already seen some players come through their academies as well as and come through. Macarthur's building, and then we haven't really probably don't know as much about Auckland and Perth and how they operate. But you can see a lot of Perth players, Pierman, Benny, have gone through the Perth Academy, and just recently we've seen a couple of other younger players move overseas. So I think each state and each club has a good setup. If you think it's the best, there's so many variables, but I think they have strengths that you've seen, like Adelaide and Central Coast, and then you've seen probably the strength of Sydney and Melbourne City, who can attract the younger players and have that pool. So I think they both use them for different reasons, but it's definitely been an uplift in academies is the way to go. It's the future. We've seen it overseas. It's the basic credential that you need to really run a club. And A-League clubs are really leaning on them now to get that grassroots all the way through, and they're most of them embedded in the state leagues too, which is really benefiting all players. So I think A-Leagues come a long way in this space.
Oh yeah, probably for me, having thought about it a bit, it's probably, let's put them into two buckets. For me, it's probably of the clubs that have the facilities and all the bells and whistles in terms of setup. Melbourne City probably slightly over Sydney FC in terms of that respect, and then for the ones that probably like have to be smarter because they don't have the setups and maybe the financial backing, it probably is Adelaide United, just for the fact of how many they've brought through, and they obviously do that slightly differently to some others, where they have a great relationship with Football South Australia, and they utilize the opportunity and the connection there. Whereas Central Coast, they produce a lot of like local talent, but they also look for opportunities where they can bring players in that may have missed their opportunity, and then be able to kind of develop them and then either bring them into the first team and have them as players or eventually sell them on.
Look, all those questions with JB Quintal on SZN are great questions, and really appreciate your feedback. They were top questions, and thank you for letting us discuss and debate those ones.
I've got one for you now.
All right.
All right.
Fire up.
Arsenal women's team have won the Championship Cup, beating Corinthians 3-2 in extra time, with Shell Harbour-born Caitlin Ford scoring the winning goal. Is Arsenal's Club World Championship win the biggest achievement of any Australian in club football?
I'll debate no. What a success story, though, that was for Arsenal to win the Club World Championship. I think that concept is growing. It's always been there to a point, Club World Championship, but I can't go past, and what most people will probably agree on is the pinnacle is the Champions League, and the girls won that last year, and Harry Kewell won it with Liverpool. So I'm going a no on that one. I think the European Champions League, from both male and female, for the girls winning that and at Arsenal and Kewell winning at Liverpool, were the biggest club achievements in Australian football. So, look, the World Club Championship, like what do they have? They just had a semi-final and a final. Just that concept, and we've seen the men's try to get it bigger last year with the World Club Championship, but I don't think it's at that pinnacle of what they would say European Champions League is. Your thoughts?
I'm going to disagree with you, mate. They're the champions of the world. Like they've done Europe. Europe was a cakewalk. They did that easy, and now they're taking on the rest of the world. So no, I think it's a fantastic achievement. And yeah, how good was it to see our three Matildas involved? Catley with the start, and then obviously Caitlin Ford off the bench with that winning goal. And I'm wearing I don't know if you can see that, man. I'm wearing my Kyra Cooney Cross t-shirt tonight in recognition, even though she didn't get on the field. But yeah, much respect and much recognition should go to the three Matildas who are doing very well at Arsenal, and yeah, champions of the world. How good.
Yes, no, definitely. And when the rest of the world turn up, Chief, it will be an achievement. But only 4 teams.
Mate, hopefully our South American listeners.
Hopefully we get a fan reaction. Yeah. Hopefully we've fired up the listeners for a bit of a reaction to that. But good valid point though. But congrats. Look, jokes aside, what an achievement for Arsenal and the girls. The Matildas, like winning Champions League and then winning the World Cup Championship. Like what an achievement. Like what a career moment. So it is rare and it is unique. So
and they're on
congratulations.
They're on a streak, so Asian Cup next.
They're on a streak. Yes, let's hope so. All right, mate, I've got one. Fire back at you. A-League prospects, this one's from. I know he's not Australian, but I'm interested in your thoughts on the Randall move. Jesse Randall. What are your thoughts?
He's a Kiwi.
I know, but A-League prospects, what's your view?
I think...
they recognise he's not Australian.
I know. I think that this is, and we see this a lot in the A-League, this is his first season where he's really thrived and kicked on. Like when you look at his stats and his performances before that, he hasn't really pulled up any trees. And I think it's just a reflection probably of the A-League. Like he's a talent and he could go on a path of like a Milanovic and not get game time, or he could go in terms of like a Sapsford, the club he's going to, and really thrive in the environment. It's really hard to know, but I think it's like when we don't have consistent years of performances, how can we really tell? Like he's a really talented player, but then as you said before, you got to factor in, when he gets over there, is he going to fit into that environment? Dundee United are kind of like mid to probably not lower, but definitely kind of 2/3 down the table type of team. He's going to get opportunities there. He's a young kid and he probably wants to expand and go for it. But I think he definitely could thrive in Scotland, and I really want to see him do well there, because I think he has a lot of talent to give Dundee United. But we know how kind of funny the Scottish League can be sometimes. Some seasons those top two kind of dominate, and it's just a matter of everyone else. And look at this season where it's so competitive. So if he goes into that environment, he can definitely thrive. But what do you think?
I don't look personally. I don't think it's the right move for him. Again, I think it's the wrong league for that type of player. He's building his confidence this year. He's definitely emerging, like you said, and I'm sure New Zealand will be watching very carefully as his development goes along. 15 matches, he's scored 6 goals. He's getting some assists. So the talent's been recognised. Again, I just don't think the Scottish Premier League is that type of style of football that will suit him. But look, it might help him with the physicality and what he's going to have to deal with in top league football over there. So, look, I think the beauty of it, and which is most important part of the deal, he was loaned back, because I think he's on a trajectory of growth at the moment. And I think that's just such smart business from Dundee United, because you said they're going to be mid-table. They probably just missed top 6. And really, what's the point of getting him over there mid-season trying to get into a new formation, new team? Is he going to, I think his growth would be stunted. So I think it's just smart that he's going to finish off that part in Auckland and then go over fresh in the pre-season. I think that'll help. But again, I just, with his looking at his style of play, I don't think Scottish Premier League's the right country for him. But I wish him all the best. I think he's got the talent. But again, we've seen many players with talent, struggle. Like you said with Milanovic over there, which again's similar type of player, but maybe off the right side, not the left. So it'd be interesting. We wish him well though. Like I'm sure the New Zealand fans will be looking for the best for him, because it's going to reflect back on the New Zealand football team, which no doubt he'll be picked in that World Cup squad. So it's a good question.
All right. Our kind of final topic, there's a couple of questions related to it, is a topic that many people debate a lot of the time, but kind of on expansion. So I'll read out all the questions and then we can go through it, mate. So from Brightside, Canberra, Gold Coast, Tasmania and Christchurch looking the most likely for A-League men's expansion. Any rough chances like Sunshine Coast? Would it be during the next 2 years of the TV deal, or wait for the one after that, after all rights expire, including the national teams, preferred DAZN, Paramount Plus or Stan? And then Sean says, with South Melbourne competing in the RFC and the introduction of the Oz Championship, should the A-League's next expansion club, other than Canberra United Men's, be an established club with history, whether it be South Melbourne, Adelaide City, etc.? I feel this could be a great option for the league. And then A-League prospects with the cheeky one on thoughts on kicking Auckland and Wellington out of the league, but quickly confirmed that that was just a joke. But it is interesting in terms of the kind of cross confederation and the mix that we've got to work with at the moment. So do you want to start us off on those questions, mate?
Look, I'll get my point of view across pretty quick because I don't like the word expansion. I think it should be pyramid based and performance based. I think each one of those countries or states or divisions or areas are all valid to be in the A-League, but it needs to be on football merit. It needs to be in a professional pyramid where they have the opportunity to do it, not just based on expansion. We've seen many clubs and we've seen this formula that we use, and I'm hoping Stephen Martin fix this as one of their first objectives. Get a pyramid where it's up and down, where clubs can build their own capability. So if it is Canberra or it is Gold Coast or Tasmania or Christchurch, they earn it based on football merit only and their capability of running a club. I think that's the way it should be done. Should we wait for the TV deals? Absolutely. But we have to have the pyramid in place just prior to that TV deal to say that this is what we're going to do in the future, and that will be based on the broadcast deal. They're my thoughts, and they've got to wait till the rights expire. I think if they do any risky moves now, you've still got Western United to sort out. Well, I can't believe we're talking about expansion. We've still, with that in the background, we should be thinking about now. We've seen the National League that we've had with those 16 teams. What's that look like in the pyramid? Does it exist within as an up and down, or does it exist in the structure? That's what Steve and Martin have to get their heads around. If they get this right for Australian football, and if they get this pyramid right and they go in with broadcast deals on that, you are going to see Australian football bounce to a level that you've never seen before. But if we continue to go back to the past ways of doing things on expansion and just picking clubs because of whatever reason on a slideshow that someone says that this is going to happen, well, it hasn't worked. Macarthur suffers with crowds. You've seen Auckland fail before, but now are back in under a new model. You've seen Gold Coast in there before, but failed. We've seen Western United in, but again, are out. So, that expansion thing to me has to be abolished, and it has to be a football pyramid, ethics and business run, and based on performance. South Melbourne should be, to me, the first one in there because they won the league, the second tier that we had. That's based on football merit. What's football South Melbourne got? You've already seen their capability. It's a perfect match. And I'm sure all South Melbourne fans would agree. They shouldn't be going to OFC. They should be coming into the A-League because they've shown in the national competition that they're the best. That's what football merit is.
You're well said, mate. Just in regards to the expansion, the broadcast deal, rumors around the last couple of weeks that they seem to be close to signing a new deal with Paramount Plus, and it's funny if that is the case because what are they actually signing off on, or is there some caveats in there to say, well, the moment we're going to give you, let's just talk about the men's part for the moment. So we're going to give you 6 games a week. However, if Western United and Canberra come in, for example, we're going to give you an extra, or the broadcaster is going to give the APL an extra amount of money on top of that. Like that's a kind of clunky way to think about it, but I don't think that they can kind of do anything else at the moment. Joey Lynch was on the Suited and Booted podcast not that long ago, and according to him, there's like 1% chance that Western United are back in the competition next season, just based on what he was saying in terms of what they've got at the moment and how much they would have to do in time to get set up for next season. Like it's only kind of 8 months away before they need to get going again. And like they've lost all their players, they've lost their manager, minimal staff there. So, it's a funny one when we're talking about, as you said, expansion, when we've got all these kind of things hanging in the balance. I agree with you in terms of football merit. It's just a matter of how we do that. And I believe that A-League men's teams have an agreement, and maybe till maybe like 2034 or so, that they are in the top tier of the league. So maybe in the first instance, until we get to that time, it needs to be promotion only, and we need to get to, let's say we're aiming to get to 16 teams. Let's keep the 12 in. Let's exclude Western United and Canberra. But maybe for the next 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cycles of the Australian Championship, somehow those champions are rewarded with the opportunity to come up and play in the A-League the following season. It's a bit tricky with the calendars aligning, but it can work. So if you're, say for instance, you win the Australian Championship in December, you have that runway of 10 months to prepare for the A-League men's season, and maybe you have the option of whether you compete in your NPL season that season, and then otherwise you just forfeit that season and prepare solely for your team to come up into the A-League the following season. But I look at that point around the Sunshine Coast, and look at how good the Brisbane Roar crowds have been at Sunshine Coast, and it's an area, I think the population is like 400,000, and they have a netball team, I think, but outside of that, there's no
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
there's no affiliation with a professional sports team. So that would be a great opportunity. So would Gold Coast, so would Canberra, so would Tasmania. But I think you're right in terms of, you look at some of the clubs in the Australian Championship, they've got established fan bases. They might not be huge, but they're rusted on solid fans that have been with that club for decades. And you're going to bring that. You're starting so far ahead. Look at MacArthur's crowds; they're like 3,500, probably. Let's say that on average. You bring in a South Melbourne, you bring in someone else. They're bringing across minimum 5, 6, 7,000 straight away. You don't have to build anything. The infrastructure is probably how cool would it be to see these games at different venues? A big name club. How good is it in the Australian Championship when we see this thing? And we see it all the time. Look at every league in the world. Look at how many in quotation marks, smaller clubs have come up to the Premier League and are now established teams in the Premier League. It can happen. But yeah, if the issue is that A-League clubs can't get relegated or can't be dropped out of the league to a certain point, let's just promote. Let's promote.
That's a great
Find
idea.
a way,
Yep.
over the next 8 seasons, it's every second season, or the two from those 2 seasons play off against each other for the spot, and we push it up to 16 that way. How many cool derbies and different talking points would be created just purely by bringing in some of these already established clubs? I think it'd be really cool.
Yeah, and the growing fans in the media that would be attracted by a promotion as well. I've seen how big promotion is overseas and how important it is to the people. So
It gives
it'd be a fantastic
it
story.
gives the Australian Championship and the NPL system credibility, and it gives the A-League a point of difference every single season. Because I think some of the issue with people in the A-League is that it's the same clubs, players chop in and out and all that kind of thing. But it's cool in other leagues to see, oh, this team's coming up, or this team got dropped, and that's where the excitement comes in for me.
Yeah. And look, it takes the risk away, doesn't it? Because like you said, if they're established, like we're talking about Canberra, we're talking about the Canberra women's team that had to be saved to start this season. We can't have that. It's just we're creating more problems by doing it, and we should learn from the lessons from the past. So all these clubs and areas, great points have been in there, but they've got to get everything right: stadium infrastructure, finance, the players, the depth, their own academies, all that, which is probably 90% already in those clubs. But they've got to get those last 10% basis points right and be competitive and build a team that's going to step up in the A-League and be competitive as well.
I think it's a difference it's a difference of going to somewhere with potential and going to somewhere that's already established. I don't see why we need to kind of risk that.
Yeah. And I think although it was a bit of a joke, the Auckland and Wellington thing, the New Zealand pathway rely on us to make them, have a professional pathway for New Zealand football. And being such close country ties, I'm sure the political relations in there would never let that happen. I think that Football Australia and the PFA should get together and lobby harder for New Zealand being recognised as an A-League being an Asian Confederation Conference to the Asian Champions League. They should lobby more that way to get Wellington and Auckland, if they did finish in that top tier, into the Asian Champions League, because they shouldn't be penalised. So yes, we do have the Oceania Cup going on and vice versa, and that's for different reasons, yeah? But they should be recognised in an A-League competition if they come first or second. They should be able to negotiate that. We've seen it with Wales, Swansea, Cardiff, Wrexham. They're all, in the European EU or the UK. Why can't we have the same thing here under that confederation and make that argument? But I'll leave that with Steve and Martin. All right, mate. That's Fan Week. Thank you very much for everyone's questions and great debate there, Chief. Appreciate that. We just have to finish, though, on some action after we recorded on Sunday night, because it's been hot. Chief, do you want to go through what happened on Monday morning, Sunday night?
Yeah, Mo Toure signed with Norwich from Randers. We spoke about that and we're pretty confident that deal was going to get done. But yeah, we gave our full assessment of what we thought of that move. So yeah, if you want to hear our thoughts, go back and listen to the previous podcast. But yeah, that's all signed and sealed, and potential first game for Norwich with Blackburn. So yeah, it'd be interesting if Toure gets any minutes in that one. And then
it'd be fantastic. What's that? I think that eight clubs were represented by now. 7 or 8 clubs in the championship are represented by Australian players. Yeah, so that's fantastic news.
Also in the Eredivisie, massive win for Heracles, 2-1, climbed off the bottom of the Eredivisie table. They are now 1 point from safety, and our Socceroo, Aiden Hrustic, scored a stunning volley to open the scoring in that one. So yeah, massive win for Heracles, and great goal from Aiden Hrustic. Not so good day for Geordie Boss. We were a bit worried about him playing this one, but final got thumped 3-0 by PSV. They're now 17 points behind PSV, and they're only 1 point ahead of third and fourth. So yeah, it's don't know what's happening there at Feyenoord, but they're certainly not having the best time. Over in Scotland, Hibs held Rangers to a 0-0 draw, with Jack Idle playing a full game and Martin Boyle playing 66 minutes. So yeah, great result for Hibs, but also in the context of Hearts as well. Bad day for Parma. They went down 4-1 to Juventus. Siccardi provided the last ball for the own goal that Juventus scored, but not a good day for Parma and for Siccardi. This one was great. Mary Fiala back on the pitch for Manchester City. She got 14 minutes off the bench in a 5-1 win over Chelsea. But yeah, on the other side, miserable day for Ellie Carpenter, who played a full game, and Sam Kerr, who got 40 minutes off the bench. Come from behind win for Spurs over West Ham, 2-1 in the Women's Super League. Katrina Gorry and Claire Hunt both played full games in that one. And Winnie Heatley got 22 minutes off the bench as Roma have a come from behind 3-3 draw with Parma. And yeah, plenty of action again on Tuesday, mate.
Yes, Ante Suto, who is eligible to play for the Socceroos, which is news that's come to light. And we talked about that earlier about allegiances, has signed with Hibs, a striker who joins from Slavan in Croatia, where he scored 4 and assisted 5 goals this season. Really grew up. Hadjay Split was there for a long time in the juniors and developed through, and has an Australian citizenship is the reason why he can obviously play for the Socceroos. So I'll be interested to see how he performs and whether Popovic looks at him in the next 12 months. Very exciting news, this one. Annalise Rasmussen. Now, we've been talking about her all year with the Ninja A-League, scoring goals for fun. She is signed with none other than Serie A Juventus from the Mariners in a club record fee. Well done to the Mariners for there. She was out of contract at the end of the year, so great that they got a fee for one of the players of the year, not only for the Mariners, but for the Ninja A-League. Great recognition for a star on the rise for the 20-year-old. What do you think of that one?
Yeah, it was awesome. And we've been so full of praise for what she's done so far for the Mariners this season. It'll be a big miss for the Mariners as they try to defend their championship because, yeah, she's been scoring plenty of goals. But what an opportunity and fantastic, as you said, for the Mariners to get a club record fee and get that compensation. It seems like a win-win for many parties on that front. So, yeah, we look forward to tracking Annalise and how she gets on at Juventus.
Yeah, we've got a lot of fantastic players in the Serie A now, so that's going to be a very big highlight for us every week. And also announced on the same day was Alana Murphy, who signed for Nottingham Forest in the WSL2 league. They're mid-table, but only 7 points off the automatic promotion. Now, very interesting. She was at FC Sand, so she's played 12 games all up. FC Sand are actually top of the Bundesliga 2 and on track for promotion. So she only went there in August. A very interesting move where it was driven by Notts Forest wanting that type of player or whether Alana Murphy was looking for more start game time. Couldn't get a read on it, but Alana Murphy seems happy. And Women's Super League 2, is we've seen another Aussie go there last week, and now we've got another player in there in Notts Forest, Alana Murphy, who obviously was the former Victory player. And she's representing the Matildas and has a very bright future for the 20-year-old as well. So she's a star in the making as well. So we wish her all the best. And Notts Forest has got a good one there.
Yeah, I think
on Wednesday, yeah, sorry, mate.
No, I was just going to say, I think it was Caitlin Torpey you're thinking of that went to Newcastle last week.
Yeah, Newcastle, absolutely. All right, mate, do you want to wrap up Wednesday's news?
Yeah, more transfers this time. Another one in the Women's League. Leah Varley signs with FC Nuremberg from Brisbane Roar, another one that we've been highlighting through the A-League Women's competition this season. So, yeah, all the best to Leah in her time over there. And then on the men's side, Reese Bozanovsky, he signed with Heracles. He's going to join Aiden Hrustic over there on a 3.5-year deal from Perth Glory. This is some great business from Perth Glory. He still had 18 months to run on his Perth contract, and they picked him up from Western United in the off-season. So, yeah, he's obviously impressed enough to pick up that deal, and then Perth's got a fee.
And then we've seen in League One action, Joe Gauchi's Port Vale go down 1-0 to Blackpool. Gauchi was left completely exposed for the goal and not much you could do about it. I know how unhappy you were at Port Vale's defending on that one, Chief, because you told me that one this morning. But we had an important win in the championship. Blackburn climb out of relegation zone with a 1-0 win over Sheffield Wednesday. Lewis Miller played 90 minutes, and we now have all Australians out of relegation mode in the championship, thank God. So hopefully that continues. Unfortunately for the other game, Portsmouth with Ipswich was postponed due to woodlog pitch, so they'll have to replay that one. In the Scottish Premier League, we have Hearts go down 1-0 to St Mirren. Their discipline has let them down again. They went down to 10 men and have a 6-point lead, but have played one more game. Rangers and Celtic play tomorrow morning, and that will be very interesting to watch that space. We also have our Aussies in Motherwell playing tomorrow morning as well, chasing that pack. So be very interesting to see how the results go tomorrow morning. And Chief, you've got some more A-League women's news.
Yeah, Ante Juric left Sydney FC this week. They're currently bottom of the league, unfortunately for them, and had a pretty rough season last season. But before that, Ante Juric did very well with Sydney FC. They won plenty of trophies under his management. So, yeah, credit to him and all the success that he's brought to the Sydney FC women's program over the years. And just some on-field action just earlier this evening. So the Wanderers have stunned Melbourne City 1-0. I think it was an own goal through 18 Keane for the Wanderers. But yeah, I think it's 3 in a row now for the Wanderers, and they've started to climb up the ladder. And Sydney FC taking on Brisbane now as we record. It's currently 3-1 to Brisbane. So yeah, Sydney FC rooted to the bottom of the table in the women's competition. So yeah, unfortunately, I haven't had that managed bounce in this one unless they have a dramatic comeback.
What about the Wanderers, eh? They just didn't look like all year that they could win a game, and they now have won 3 in a row. So fantastic news for them to bounce back. And what about Melbourne City, the Globetrotters we used to call them, but now they've lost a couple now, so they're going to have to try to bounce back. But we also have, on the final note, AFC have confirmed that Australia have bid to host either the 2031 and 2035 Men's Asia Cup, another exciting tournament, hopefully, that we can secure. And last time we hosted the Asia Cup, we won. And that's good news for Australian football, as the events just keep on coming if they can secure the rights, that is, in either 31 or 35.
Yeah, hopefully.
Wow. What a big
Yeah, hopefully
Yeah, go, mate.
hopefully we can get it. I think it was something that Answer Isaac, the Football Australia chairman, mentioned in Martin Kugler's press conference about their ambition to host more tournaments in Australia. So this is obviously part of that, and yeah, it'd be very cool to host another one. Maybe 2031 would be really good, or even 2035. 20-year anniversary from winning that one in 2015. So that'd be cool.
Well, that's our midweek wrap. And first of all, I'd just like to say thank you for all the fans. We represent you and your voice, and we'll try to communicate as much Australian news and Australian football as we can each week. But you're the custodians as well of the game, and we'd love to hear from you, and we value your opinions. So keep those questions coming in each week, and we'll try to debate or answer each one of them. Your contribution is so important to the success of Australian football. So thank you for the Fam Week, and Chief, thank you for all your comments and great analysation of some of the very sticky topics there, isn't there? Some very debatable questions, but it was fun and exciting. So thank you very much to everyone.
No worries, mate. Yeah, thank you so much for the questions. It was great to debate some of those topics. We'll be back on Sunday to record as usual. In the meantime, enjoy football.
All the best.